The air in that sterile conference room always felt heavy, but on that morning, after Brenda read the report, it became thick, almost unbreathable. Nobody moved. The paternity test had confirmed what I knew in my gut, 99.99% certainty, those precise, cold numbers screaming my name. But as I watched Eleanor, her face twisting almost imperceptibly, I knew this was only half the battle. The other half, the truly devastating one, the one that had already ripped my family apart, was still waiting. Her jaw was getting tight. A small shift in how she sat, but I'd been married to Eleanor for 7 years. I knew what that look meant, a volcano rumbling beneath a thin crust. My mind was already elsewhere. The paternity result was only half the battle. The other half was the package she'd assembled. The one she'd leaked to half my family. The one that accused my brother, Ryan, of being Chloe's biological father. It had shattered his engagement to Sophia, fractured my relationship with my parents, and turned every family gathering into a minefield. It was still out there, poisoning everything. And now that the DNA proved it was fake, the question was what we were going to do about it. Let me rewind. The custody battle officially kicked off last January. I'd filed for divorce in November, 2 years before that. 3 days after coming home early from a work trip and finding Eleanor with her personal trainer, Leo, in our bedroom. That image, it's still stuck in my head. I stood in the doorway, suitcase in hand, laptop bag over my shoulder. Like an idiot, I'd even picked up flowers at the airport. The bedroom door was open. Lights dim. They both froze when they saw me. Eleanor grabbed for the sheet. Leo just grabbed his clothes and bolted past me without a word. I didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. I turned around, walked downstairs, sat on the couch for 10 minutes just staring at nothing. I packed a small bag, grabbed my laptop and important documents, and drove to a motel. Called a divorce lawyer first thing in the morning. The receptionist must have heard something in my voice because she got me an appointment that same afternoon. The proceedings dragged on for 9 months. Eleanor hired an aggressive attorney, Mr. Davison, who painted me as an absent workaholic, prioritizing my career over my family. They subpoenaed my travel records, my work emails, anything that showed I wasn't physically in the house. I hired Brenda. She fought every claim. Yeah, I traveled for work. I was a regional account manager for a pharmaceutical distribution company covering a 6-state territory. Travel was part of the gig, but I was home every weekend without fail. I coached Chloe's soccer team on Saturday mornings. Made it to every school event, every parent-teacher conference, every dance recital. I kept a detailed calendar, with photos and receipts, that Brenda entered into evidence. Mr. Davison tried to paint me as some absent father who cared more about commission checks than his daughter. Brenda shut that down hard. She showed Judge Reynolds my calendar, my flight records, the fact that I'd never missed a single one of Chloe's birthday parties or school plays. I was present. That's what mattered. Judge Reynolds granted the divorce and ordered a custody evaluation. The evaluator was a psychologist named Dr. Chapman. Mid-50s, seemed sharp. She'd been doing this for 30 years. You could tell she'd seen every trick in the book. She spent 4 months on interviews, home visits, reviewing records. I met with her 6 times, each session about 2 hours. She asked stuff I didn't expect, about my childhood, my relationship with my own dad who died when I was 19, how I handled stress and conflict, what I wanted Chloe's life to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20. I answered everything honestly. Had nothing to hide. Talked about wanting Chloe to feel secure. Wanting her to know both her parents loved her, even if we couldn't live together, not wanting her caught in the middle of adult drama. Dr. Chapman visited my apartment twice and Eleanor's place twice. One of my home visits, she watched me help Chloe with her math homework. Chloe got frustrated with a subtraction problem and started tearing up. Found out later Dr. Chapman was specifically watching how I handled that. I just did what I always did. Told Chloe it was okay to struggle. Worked through the problem step by step, high-fived her when she got it right. Dr. Chapman also talked to Chloe's teachers, her pediatrician, her soccer coach, even interviewed some parents of Chloe's friends to get outside takes on both households. Thorough doesn't begin to describe it. When her preliminary findings came out in August, they recommended joint custody with equal parenting time and shared decision-making. She noted that while both parents could handle Chloe's basic needs, I showed more consistency and emotional stability. She also noted that Eleanor had made negative comments about me in front of Chloe on 2 separate home visits. That was a red flag. Eleanor lost it. She filed 3 separate motions in 1 week trying to discredit the evaluation. Accused Dr. Chapman of bias, bad methodology, predetermined conclusion, claimed the evaluator hadn't properly weighed Eleanor's role as primary caregiver during Chloe's early years. All 3 motions got denied with prejudice. Judge Reynolds wasn't buying what Eleanor was selling. That's when Eleanor went nuclear. Late September, she filed a motion in family court challenging paternity. Standard legal language about having reason to believe I might not be Chloe's biological father based on timing and circumstances around conception. Requested court-ordered genetic testing before any custody arrangement could be finalized. Brenda called me the same day the motion hit. Said this was a delay tactic, plain and simple. Eleanor was trying to buy time because the custody evaluation had gone badly for her. Creating doubt about paternity could stall everything for months while they ran tests and processed results. Brenda recommended we agree to testing immediately. Don't fight it. Don't look defensive. Refusing would just play into Eleanor's story that I had something to hide. I agreed. Nothing to hide. But Brenda also said something that stuck with me. She said if Eleanor was willing to challenge paternity when she knew damn well I was Chloe's father, it meant she was planning something else, something personal. 2 weeks later, I found out what that something was. Eleanor showed up at my apartment in Atlanta on a Tuesday evening, unannounced. It was early October, 2 weeks after she'd filed the paternity challenge. Chloe was at her place for the week under our temporary custody, so there was no valid reason for the visit. I opened the door and found her standing there in her work clothes, holding a manila folder. She held it out. You deserve the truth before the results come back. I took it. She didn't move. I'm done protecting people who don't deserve it. Then she turned and walked away without another word. Didn't wait for a question. Didn't give me a chance to respond. Just delivered her package and disappeared into the parking lot. I stood in my doorway for a minute before opening it, already trying to figure out what game she was playing. Inside was a whole packet of evidence. A timeline from 6.5 years ago, around when Chloe was conceived. Screenshots of text messages allegedly between Eleanor and my brother Ryan. A credit card statement showing a hotel charge in Ryan's name on a date circled in red marker. A printed statement from someone named Kelly Foster, claiming to be a friend who witnessed Ryan and Eleanor together during that period. The timeline was detailed. It showed Ryan visiting Atlanta for a family event in late March. Noted that I'd been traveling for work that same week, highlighted a 3-day window where, according to Eleanor's version, she and Ryan had been alone together. The text screenshots were bad. Flirty messages building over weeks. Making plans to meet up. One that mentioned a weekend at the coast where they'd supposedly hooked up. Another one talking about keeping things from me because it would destroy everything. The hotel receipt showed a charge at some boutique hotel downtown on March 22nd. Ryan's name on the reservation, one night. The witness statement from Kelly Foster was brief but specific. She claimed she'd worked with Eleanor at some dental office and had personally witnessed Ryan and Eleanor together at a restaurant that March. Described them as very intimate. Said she'd always wondered if something was going on between them. I sat down at my kitchen table and went through each page like I was reviewing a sales report. The whole thing was packaged like a Costco-sized betrayal. Bulk quantity, suspiciously cheap, and guaranteed to ruin your week. I didn't throw the folder. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't call Ryan screaming. I called Brenda. She came over an hour later and looked at everything. Spread the pages across my table, examined each one. She said this was a hit job. Eleanor knew she was losing the custody evaluation. She knew the paternity test would prove I was Chloe's father. This packet wasn't about court. It was about blowing up my family before the hearing, breaking my support system, making me so stressed I'd settle for whatever she wanted. Brenda said we needed to verify everything through legal channels. If it was fake, and she was pretty sure it was, we could use it against Eleanor, but I had to stay calm. Let her handle it. Don't give Eleanor what she wanted. I asked what I should do about Ryan. She said, don't confront him yet. Wait for verification. Eleanor was counting on me to blow up at my brother and start a family war. That's exactly what she wanted. Chaos helped her, not me. I said I understood, but I was already too late. Eleanor hadn't just given the packet to me. She'd sent copies to my parents that same day. Emailed it to Sophia, Ryan's fiancée. Shared parts of it with people from our old church who knew both our families. My phone started buzzing that night around 9 p.m. 3 missed calls from my mother while I was meeting with Brenda. A voicemail from my father asking me to call him back immediately. A text from Ryan, what the hell is happening? I called my mother first. She answered on the first ring. My mom's voice shook. Is it true? Why would Ryan do this? Why is she sending me this? I could hear she'd been crying, maybe for hours. I told her I didn't believe it. Said we needed to verify everything first. Eleanor was desperate because the custody evaluation went badly and this was her way of hurting everyone. My mother didn't know what to believe anymore. Said Ryan had already called her, sobbing, swearing on his life he'd never touched Eleanor. Sophia had seen the email, too. Packed a bag and left within an hour of opening it. I asked where Sophia went. Mom didn't know. Ryan didn't know either. This was tearing everyone apart, and she didn't understand why Eleanor would do this. I told her Eleanor was doing it because she wanted to hurt us. Told her to stay calm and wait for the facts to come out. I hung up and sat in the dark for a long time. Didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, Ryan called me. His voice was raw. Did you believe any of it? Even for a second? He asked how I could let Eleanor destroy his life without warning him first. He asked why I didn't call him the minute I saw that folder. I told him I got the packet the same night everyone else did. I told him I was working with my lawyer to verify everything. I told him I wanted to believe him. He was quiet for a long moment. He exhaled hard. There's a difference between waiting for proof and trusting your brother. Then he hung up. We didn't speak again for nearly 3 weeks. The next 7 weeks were the longest of my life. I kept my routine because routine was the only thing holding me together. Went to work, answered emails, sat through meetings where I couldn't focus on anything being discussed, picked up Chloe on my custody days, helped with homework, cooked dinners, read bedtime stories, kept detailed notes in my journal the way Brenda had taught me from the beginning of this process. Everything documented in case it became evidence later. Chloe asked once why Grandma seemed sad on the phone. She'd overheard part of a call before I could walk into another room. I told her grown-ups sometimes had hard days, but everything would be okay. Meanwhile, Brenda was working on verification. She filed motions to make Eleanor produce the originals, not copies, the actual devices where the text supposedly existed or iCloud/Google backups showing the conversation history. She also requested metadata analysis on the screenshot files. That stuff shows when images were created and what software made them. And she scheduled a deposition with Kelly Foster. Mr. Davison fought every request. He filed objections claiming privacy concerns. Funny how privacy only mattered once we asked for originals and backups. Before that, she'd been passing the rumor around like it came with free shipping. He argued that the paternity test would resolve all questions, making verification of the other evidence unnecessary. He said his client shouldn't be subjected to invasive discovery based on a custody dispute. Judge Reynolds denied most of his objections. She said if Eleanor was going to make allegations that affected custody proceedings and family relationships, she needed to be prepared to back them up with verifiable evidence. She said the court had an interest in determining the credibility of parties in custody matters. The family stuff was ugly. Thanksgiving came 7 weeks after the packet dropped. My parents tried to host dinner like they always did, but Ryan refused to come if I was there. Not because he was still mad at me specifically. He'd cooled off enough to admit I was just another target of Eleanor's scheme. But he couldn't handle sitting across from our mom while she looked at him like she wasn't sure who he really was. He texted me about it. First time we talked since that phone call where he hung up on me. He said he knew Mom was trying, but every time she looked at him, he could see her wondering. He couldn't sit through that. I understood. Told him I'd skip so he could go. He said that wasn't right either. We went back and forth about it for hours over text. Eventually, neither of us went. I spent Thanksgiving at my apartment with Chloe. Made a small turkey breast, watched some movies. Chloe asked why we weren't at Grandma's house. I told her plans changed this year. That sometimes families did holidays differently. She seemed fine with it. It was actually nice, just the two of us, quiet. But the whole time, I kept thinking about my parents sitting at their big table with all those empty chairs, wondering what went wrong. Sophia moved back to her parents' place in South Carolina. I heard this from my mom, not Ryan. He wouldn't talk about Sophia at all, like saying her name would make it real. Ryan finally called me 3 days after Thanksgiving. First real conversation since the explosion. He sounded hollow, beat down. Said Sophia still wouldn't return his calls. He'd driven to South Carolina the weekend before and her parents turned him away at the door. Didn't even let him inside. He said he'd done nothing wrong and his life was still destroyed. Doesn't matter that he's innocent. The accusation alone was enough to end his engagement. I told him I believed him. Not wanted to believe, I believed. Said the verification was already showing holes in Eleanor's evidence. We'd have hard proof soon. He was quiet for a while, then said he appreciated that, but proof wouldn't fix things with Sophia. She'd looked at him like he was a stranger. Like 7 years together meant nothing compared to a few screenshots. I didn't know what to say. The verification started bearing fruit in early December. Brenda called me on a Tuesday morning with the first breakthrough. The digital forensics consultant she'd hired had completed his analysis of the screenshot image files. The results were damning. Brenda said these images were created this year. They weren't screenshots from 2018. The metadata embedded in the image files proved it. The screenshots weren't photographs of an old phone screen. They were freshly made fakes. The forensics guy found artifacts from a fake text generator app. The formatting, the pixel dimensions, even how the fonts rendered, it all matched an app called Fake Text Message that didn't even exist until 2021. So, this alleged conversation from 2018 was made using software that wouldn't be invented for another 3 years. Brenda said the expert had prepared a formal affidavit and was available to testify. This wasn't just opinion. It was documented and sworn. The picture was becoming clear. Eleanor had gone to a fake text generator website, typed up a conversation that never happened, screenshotted it, and passed it off as real. Probably took her 20 minutes. She thought nobody would check the metadata. Brenda also said Eleanor couldn't produce any original devices or backup records, no iCloud backup, no Google account history, no phone to examine. She claimed the old phone had been lost years ago, and she'd never backed up her messages. Convenient. I asked about the hotel receipt. Brenda said that one took longer. She'd subpoenaed records from the hotel, but getting old reservation data was a hassle. 2 weeks of follow-ups before she got a records coordinator who knew how to search their archive system. Result: no booking under Ryan's name on that date. No booking under any name tied to Ryan's credit card. And here's what sealed it. The confirmation number on Eleanor's receipt didn't exist in their system. The format was wrong. Their confirmation numbers were always 12 digits starting with 2 letters. Eleanor's showed 10 digits starting with a number. She'd probably found a receipt template online and filled in random details without checking how their actual system worked. Amateur hour. The witness, Kelly Foster, was scheduled for deposition the following week. Brenda was looking forward to it. Said she expected that would finish things off. Meanwhile, I had to deal with the social fallout without letting it affect Chloe. The church got awkward. Eleanor had shared parts of the packet with people from our congregation. Word spreads fast in those circles. Some woman I barely knew came up to me after service asking if everything was okay at home. Like she was concerned but really just wanted gossip. I stopped going. Found a smaller church across town where nobody knew us. Chloe asked why we switched. I said I liked the new one better. She just asked if they had donuts. They did. Work became a refuge. The one place where nobody knew anything about my personal life. I started keeping a second journal. Not the custody log Brenda had me doing for court. This one was personal. How I was keeping it together when everything around me was falling apart. Brenda had told me early on that these kinds of custody cases destroyed people who let emotions run the show. The parents who won were the ones who stayed strategic, kept their cool in depositions in courtrooms and school pickup lines. Never gave the other side ammunition. I took that seriously. Every time I wanted to call Eleanor and lose it on her for what she'd done, I wrote in the journal instead. Every time I wanted to drive to Ryan's place and make him believe me, I wrote instead. That journal filled up fast. The DNA testing was scheduled for December 12th at a lab downtown. Both Eleanor and I submitted samples. Chloe's was collected separately by a court-appointed worker at a kid-friendly facility so she wouldn't freak out. I got there at 9 with Brenda. Eleanor showed up 15 minutes late with Mr. Davison. She looked put together but tired. Whatever she was planning, the stress was getting to her, too. The actual test took 5 minutes. Cheek swab, documentation, chain of custody signatures. The technician was all business. Didn't explain anything beyond what was necessary. I went back to work and tried not to think about it. Tried not to count the days until I'd officially know what I already knew. Meanwhile, Eleanor was still working her campaign outside the courtroom. She called my parents again, sobbing, saying she was terrified of what Ryan might do if the truth came out. Told them she'd been carrying this secret for years to protect everyone. But now she was scared. Started implying things about Chloe's safety around Ryan without actually saying anything directly. Classic Eleanor. Plant the seed. Let other people's imaginations do the dirty work. My mother called me that night. She sounded exhausted. She said Eleanor had been crying on the phone for an hour. She said she didn't know what was true anymore. She said she wanted to believe Ryan, but Eleanor seemed so genuinely afraid. I told her Eleanor was performing. I told her the evidence verification was showing the packet was fabricated. I told her to wait just a little longer. My father got on the line. He said he didn't know who to believe anymore. He said the family was falling apart and he didn't know how to fix it. He said he felt like he was failing everyone. I told him he wasn't failing anyone. I told him Eleanor had engineered this chaos specifically to make everyone feel that way. I told him to trust the process. He said he hoped I was right. His voice didn't sound convinced. The Kelly Foster deposition happened on December 16. Brenda conducted the questioning in a conference room at her firm. Kelly arrived with her own lawyer, a nervous-looking younger attorney who clearly wasn't prepared for what Brenda had assembled. Kelly was mid-30s, worked in dental office administration, and had clearly been fed a script by Eleanor that she hadn't fully memorized. Under oath, her story started cracking within the first 20 minutes. Brenda asked her to describe the restaurant where she'd allegedly witnessed Ryan and Eleanor together. Kelly gave a name. Brenda pulled out records showing that restaurant had been closed for renovation the entire month Kelly claimed to have seen them there. The permits were public record. The reopening announcement in the local paper was dated 6 weeks after Kelly's supposed sighting. Kelly went pale. Said maybe she got the restaurant name wrong. Said it was a long time ago. Brenda didn't let up. Asked Kelly to describe the interior of the restaurant. Kelly said it had red booths in a bar area near the front. Brenda showed her photos from the restaurant's website. The place had never had booths, just tables, and the bar was in the back. Kelly started backpedaling, saying maybe she was thinking of a different location. Then Brenda asked what Ryan looked like. Kelly gave some vague description. Brown hair, average height. Brenda showed her photos of Ryan from that time and asked her to confirm. Kelly froze. Said faces blur together after so long. That's when things fell apart for her. Brenda asked if Eleanor had contacted her recently about providing this statement. Kelly's lawyer objected, but Kelly had already started nodding before catching herself. She admitted Eleanor called her about 2 months ago. Brenda asked if Eleanor had helped her remember details, maybe suggested what restaurant it was, what Ryan looked like, what they were wearing. Kelly's face told the whole story. She'd been coached, and the coaching didn't hold up. Brenda asked if Eleanor had offered anything in exchange for the statement. Money, favors, anything. Kelly's lawyer objected hard, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. After the deposition, Brenda said Kelly would probably change her story before the hearing. We were building a solid case that the whole packet was made up. 2 days later, the DNA results came in, confirmed what I'd known all along. The custody hearing was scheduled for January 8th. I barely slept the night before. Kept running through every piece of evidence in my head. I got to the courthouse at 8:30 with Brenda. Eleanor showed up at 8:45 with Mr. Davison. She looked wiped. The DNA results had come back 3 weeks earlier. 99.99% certainty that I was Chloe's father. Her paternity challenge was dead and the verification had blown up the rest of her case. Brenda had put together a full filing. The forensic analysis showing the screenshots were created months ago with fake text software. No devices or backups to support the alleged messages. The bogus hotel receipt. The restaurant that was closed. Kelly's backpedaling. The whole thing. Eleanor's entire packet was exposed as fraud. Judge Reynolds presided. She reviewed the case file. Noted that Dr. Chapman's evaluation had recommended joint custody with equal time. Noted that Eleanor filed a motion challenging paternity. Noted that genetic testing confirmed I was Chloe's father. Then she looked at Mr. Davison and asked him to explain his client's basis for the paternity challenge. Mr. Davison did his best. Said his client had genuine concerns based on circumstances around conception. Those concerns were now resolved. His client accepted the results and wanted to move forward. Judge Reynolds looked at Mr. Davison. Are these allegations connected to the paternity motion? Yes or no? Mr. Davison hesitated, tried to say his client had shared concerns privately with family members, which was her right as a citizen. Brenda stood up, asked the court's permission to present evidence about those private allegations. Said the court needed to see the full picture of what was really going on here. The judge allowed it. Brenda walked through everything. The metadata showing the screenshots were faked. The missing devices, the bogus hotel receipt, the restaurant that was closed, Kelly's backpedaling. She argued that Eleanor had manufactured evidence to blow up my support system and force a settlement. It showed terrible judgment and a willingness to hurt anyone to win. Mr. Davison objected repeatedly throughout Brenda's presentation. Judge Reynolds overruled most of them. Didn't even look annoyed, more like she'd already made up her mind and was just letting the record build. Judge Reynolds said, "This court does not reward parents who manufacture conflict. When a parent deliberately destroys family relationships through fake allegations," she said, "it goes straight to judgment and the child's best interests. Kids need stability. They need parents who act like adults." What Eleanor had done was the opposite of that. Dr. Chapman testified about her evaluation. Both parents could handle basic care, but I showed more consistency and emotional stability. She'd seen Eleanor badmouth me in front of Chloe. Said that kind of conflict hurts children. I testified about my relationship with Chloe, present from birth, soccer coach for 3 years, homework help every night I had her. Bedtime stories where I did all the voices. Staying consistent through the divorce even when it would have been easier to check out. Mr. Davison cross-examined me about work travel. I explained I'd cut back my territory since the divorce and reduced travel by 40%. He tried to make me sound like an absent father anyway. I stayed calm, answered honestly, didn't let him get under my skin. Eleanor testified about being the primary caregiver, about sacrifice, about knowing Chloe's needs better than anyone. Brenda cross-examined her about the evidence packet, asked if Eleanor had created those screenshots using fake text generator software. Eleanor said she believed the messages were real at the time. Brenda asked how that was possible when forensic analysis proved the images were created this year, not 6 years ago. Eleanor said she must have been confused about where she got them. Judge Reynolds's face didn't change, but the silence said what she couldn't. Confusion doesn't generate metadata. Brenda asked if Eleanor understood the harm her allegations caused to my brother's engagement. Eleanor said that wasn't her intention. Brenda asked what her intention was. Eleanor started crying. She said she wanted to protect Chloe. She was scared of losing her daughter. Judge Reynolds called a recess. When we came back, her face gave nothing away. Judge Reynolds said she'd reviewed all evidence and testimony carefully. She said both parents clearly loved Chloe. Both were capable of providing basic care. Those facts weren't in dispute. However, she said the court had to consider credibility, judgment, and the child's overall welfare when making custody determinations. And on those factors, the evidence painted a troubling picture. She said Eleanor's paternity challenge, while technically within her legal rights, had been filed without genuine basis and appeared designed to delay proceedings after an unfavorable custody evaluation. More seriously, she said the evidence showed that fake allegations had been created and spread to people outside this courtroom. Those allegations destroyed an engagement, tore up family relationships, created chaos in places where Chloe would be present. That kind of deception showed terrible judgment. She said Eleanor had put winning over Chloe's need for a stable environment. She'd been willing to hurt innocent people just to get an advantage. She looked directly at Eleanor. You used a paternity challenge as leverage. That conduct is harmful to the child. She said Dr. Chapman's evaluation was credible. The fact that Eleanor had badmouthed me in front of Chloe fit the pattern of conflict-driven behavior the court had just seen evidence of. Based on all evidence, she ordered joint legal custody with me having primary physical custody. Eleanor would have parenting time every other weekend and 1 evening per week. Both parents were required to complete co-parenting education classes within 90 days. The arrangement would be reviewed in 6 months. But even when you win in family court, you don't win clean. The judge also ordered all custody exchanges at a neutral location, a police station parking lot, for 6 months. All communication through a court-approved parenting app. No texts, no calls outside the app. Neither of us could discuss the case in front of Chloe. Rules for everyone. That's family court. She also ordered Eleanor to pay 30% of my attorney's fees related to the verification of the fabricated evidence. Said the costs of proving deliberate falsehoods shouldn't fall entirely on the innocent party. The amount was conservative given how much Brenda had to dig, but the judge said she hoped it would encourage more honest conduct going forward. Mr. Davison asked if sanctions were necessary given that his client was clearly struggling emotionally. Judge Reynolds said emotional distress didn't excuse deliberate fabrication of evidence. She said the sanctions were lenient compared to what she could have imposed. Eleanor sobbed quietly. Mr. Davison requested reconsideration. The judge said her decision was final. Eleanor could appeal through proper channels if she chose. Court was adjourned. Brenda and I walked out of the courthouse into the January cold. You won, she said. It doesn't feel like winning, I replied. She said I had primary custody of my daughter. Eleanor had been held accountable for what she did. That's as close to winning as family court ever got. Most fathers in my position would be popping drinks right now. I told her I'd celebrate when my family was whole again. When my brother had his fiancée back, when my parents could look at both their sons without wondering what really happened. She nodded. Said that was fair. Then said to go home, hug my daughter, and try to get some sleep. 3 days later, Ryan's lawyer sent Eleanor a demand letter, 14 pages. It listed out all the fake evidence she'd made and spread around, laid out the damages Ryan had suffered, the broken engagement, the stress, the hit to his reputation when people in his industry heard the rumors. It demanded a written retraction, a settlement for damages, and threatened a defamation lawsuit if she didn't comply in 30 days. Mr. Davison contacted Ryan's lawyer almost immediately. They went back and forth for 2 weeks. Eleanor was tapped out after the custody case. No money for another legal fight, and Ryan didn't actually want to spend another year in courtrooms. He just wanted someone to officially say he didn't do anything wrong. They reached a settlement. Eleanor signed a retraction. The language was careful, written by lawyers to minimize how much she actually admitted while still acknowledging the evidence was false. Something about the information being unreliable and apologizing for any harm caused. She also paid Ryan a settlement. I never asked how much. It wasn't about money for him. It was about having something on paper. Ryan sent the retraction to Sophia in South Carolina. I don't know if she read it. I don't know if it mattered to her by then. Some damage doesn't repair just because the truth comes out. I picked up Chloe for the first time under the new custody order at the police station parking lot. Saturday morning, cold and bright. Eleanor pulled up in her car, got out, and handed over Chloe's backpack without looking at me. Said something about homework being in the front pocket. The whole exchange took 30 seconds. Cops walking in and out, not paying attention to us. Just another custody swap. Weird way to start your weekend with your kid, but that's what the judge ordered. In the car, Chloe asked why Mommy cried so much lately. I said sometimes grown-ups had hard times, but Mommy loved her and everything would be okay. She started telling me about her class pet, a hamster that she got to feed last week. That night after Chloe was asleep, I just sat there. 10 months of custody war. A fake scandal that almost destroyed my family. A brother who was talking to me again, but still tensed up when I called out of nowhere. Ryan and I were rebuilding slowly. You don't fix that kind of damage with a court ruling or a settlement check. Trust comes back in inches, not miles. We'd grab lunch sometimes. Talk about sports, work, normal stuff. Neither of us brought up those weeks when we weren't speaking. Some things you just move past. My parents came over for dinner the following week. Mom hugged me for a long time when she walked in. Dad shook my hand and said he was proud of how I'd handled everything. Said he was sorry for the times he'd wavered. I told him there was nothing to apologize for. Sophia stayed in South Carolina. Ryan told me they'd had exactly one phone call since he sent her the retraction. She said she needed more time. He said he'd wait as long as she needed, but his voice didn't sound hopeful. Some things just don't come back. That's the part Eleanor never counted on. She got to walk away with shared custody and her pride mostly intact. While my brother lost someone he was going to marry, all because she wanted to win a custody battle. Eleanor completed her co-parenting classes. Showed up on time for her weekends. Chloe always came back happy from those visits, which was all that really mattered. Maybe Eleanor was learning something. Maybe she was just being careful. Either way, Chloe was protected. Ryan got engaged again 14 months later. Different woman. Met her at a work conference. She's good. Treats him right. Looks at him like she actually trusts him. I was his best man. At the reception, Ryan pulled me aside near the garden entrance. He looked actually happy for the first time in months. He said he was sorry for those weeks of silence after the packet dropped. Said he'd let Eleanor's lies get into his head. He should have known better. I told him it was over. Told him we were good. He nodded. We shook hands. Then he pulled me into a hug. We didn't need to say anything else. So, how do you co-parent with someone who's willing to weaponize lies?